My name is Cynthia McDowell. I'm completing my Master's of Science in the Department of Psychology, and this talk will focus on promoting dementia symptom reduction and cognitive health using music as medicine. So I'll begin just by telling you a bit more about myself and my research interests, and then I'll dive into the merits of psychosocial lifestyle interventions and why music in particular is a powerful and promising approach for individuals living with dementia. I'll then discuss a recent study and results from our music intervention, Voices in Motion, which Deborah just spoke about, which again is a psychosocial choir intervention for persons with dementia and their care partners. And then I'll just end with discussing some implications and contributions of this research to better understanding healthy aging, as well as some future directions as well. So just a bit about me. I'm currently a master's student in the experimental lifespan health and development program, and I'm a researcher for Dr. Stuart McDonald's Brain Aging and Neurocognitive Health Lab. Following the completion of my master's, I'll become continuing in the research intensive doctoral program. And my research interests primarily surround individual differences in risk and protective factors for both healthy and pathological aging, modeling developmental change, reducing prevalence of dementia, and supporting living well with the disease. So a large part of this has focused on demonstrating the biopsychosocial benefits of the Voices in Motion intervention and its potential to moderate patterns of cognitive change, mitigate negative symptoms, and improve quality of life beyond traditional pharmacological approaches. So individuals with dementia are currently reliant on limited pharmacological intervention, but these treatments, they really just provide mild symptomatic alleviation. So they mask the symptoms associated with dementia, but they don't alter or arrest disease progression. And despite pharmaceutical intervention, individuals often experience a continued deterioration in cognitive function and activities of daily living, in addition to numerous harmful side effects that are associated with drug therapy. So due to the adverse side effects and the limitations of pharmacotherapy, non-pharmacological lifestyle interventions are receiving growing attention due to various cognitive, behavioral, and psychological benefits. So music interventions in particular represent a promising approach to improve mood, well-being, and overall psychosocial functioning by alleviating negative symptoms and improving quality of life. So previous studies have found that various music interventions for persons with dementia can result in heightened feelings of belonging, self-esteem, and increased emotional well-being. And it's proposed that music interventions may be effective by providing a alternative medium of expression to compensate for diminishing verbal language capacities. And music's also been found to improve overall quality of life by providing a sense of autonomy, as well as stimulating endorphin production, which contributes to pain modulation and inhibition. Finally, given that dementia can cause feelings of isolation and fear, psychosocial interventions such as music therapy can be effective by promoting inclusion and stigma reduction and fostering a sense of community to help rebuild social support networks. But above all these incredible psychosocial benefits of music, music is also beneficial for cognitive health. So music memory is specialized, and brain areas responsible for the music memory system are relatively spared from dementia pathology. So the ability to process music is typically actually the last part of the brain to deteriorate, and individuals with dementia are often found capable of learning new music, as well as recognizing and reproducing older familiar songs. So this is largely because music, in particular lyrical music, stimulates a diverse and extensive neural network, which engages several different cognitive processes. So in contrast to episodic and semantic memory systems of the hippocampus, which are known to deteriorate early in the disease process, procedural and emotional memory systems, which are involved in music memory, remain relatively intact until late stage disease pathology. So collectively, individuals with dementia engaged in music-based interventions may benefit from the cumulative effect of an increased stimulation of diverse cognitive and neuronal systems, an increase in personal autonomy, connection, and communication, and the emotional modulation, such as increased mood or decreased anxiety. So with these known benefits in mind, Voices in Motion was developed as an intergenerational and community-based choir intervention for persons with dementia and their care partners. So in addition to being an empirically based choir experience, Voices in Motion also integrates lifestyle changes that seek to enhance memory, reduce depression, stigma, and caregiver distress, increase social engagement, and just promote overall psychological and physical brain health. So although Voices in Motion involves individuals with dementia and their care partners, this is a study that we just wrapped up that looked at just individuals with dementia. So we examined 33 participants with dementia, in which the majority of participants were diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease specifically, and participants had an average age of 79 years. And we were interested in, one, evaluating whether our choir intervention could modulate patterns of cognitive change for persons with dementia across both short and long-term participation. And two, exploring the mechanisms that may influence this cognitive change by examining whether cognitive function and select psychosocial and physiological variables synchronously move together across time. So as Deborah mentioned briefly earlier, we collected data over 3 of our choir seasons, which spanned a total of 18 months of data collection. So this is called a longitudinal intensive repeated measures design, or a measurement burst design, where data is collected across both short and long-term intervals. So essentially, data on various health measures was collected every 3 to 4 weeks within each choir season, so that we could examine numerous points of data across short-term participation within the choir seasons, but as well as the impact of the long-term participation across the choir seasons. And beyond the advantages of the ability to examine both short and long-term change, this design also provided us with up to 9 assessments for each individual, so that we could look at within-person change, which is essentially how an individual is changing within themselves across multiple time points. Now, this is in contrast to majority of intervention studies that typically examine between-person change, which essentially examines results in one group compared to another group based on performance from a single score or time point. So the current design allowed us to determine how individuals are changing across time in various health domains based on their own average or baseline scores. So for this project, cognitive function was evaluated using a test called the Mini Mental State Examination, or the MMSE, which is a measure of global cognitive function. And it's scored out of 30, with higher scores representing more mild cognitive impairment and lower scores suggesting severe cognitive impairment. And then for our second question regarding mechanisms of cognitive change, we examined positive and negative affect, or essentially mood, as a measure of psychosocial well-being. And then we examined gait velocity, or essentially walking speed, as our measure of physiological functioning. And we examined gait because a growing body of research is indicating that gait is a strong index of central nervous system functioning, and it's increasingly being noted that the presence of disease can disrupt the automatic functioning that's required for gait regulation. So gait velocity was measured using a gait-right computerized walkway, which is a long mat embedded with pressure sensors, and it's developed to measure different temporal and spatial gait characteristics. And we measured gait velocity under a walk-only and a dual task condition, where for the latter, participants walked across the map while counting down from a given number by sevens in order
okay,
to...
I can hear that now. Thank you.
in order to generate cognitive resource competition and put them under cognitive load. So results from our first research objective showed that cognitive function across long-term participation in the choir was declining by approximately 1.8 units annually on the MMSE. So to exemplify, an individual that started the intervention with a score of 20 scored approximately 18 at 1 year following their baseline assessment. And this result was similar across our 33 participants. So this is considerably less than what is typical for a progressive neuropathological disease like dementia, in which the annual decline in cognitive function is expected to be much greater in the absence of an intervention. So overall, this suggests the benefits of this social singing intervention and the potential for protecting against some of the expected cognitive decline over the course of 1 year for persons with dementia. So our next step was to investigate what specifically about the intervention might protect against this expected severe cognitive decline. And we hypothesized that the intervention might alleviate some comorbidities or symptoms of dementia, which in turn might result in linkages with cognition. So we explored patterns of coupling, which is where two processes move together or fluctuate together across time from assessment to assessment. And this is similar to what Tico did with her results as well, where she was looking at fluctuations within persons. So specifically, we evaluated whether a given individual's cognitive function increased or decreased on occasions when their affect and or gait velocity also increased or decreased. So it turns out that on occasions when a given individual performed 1 unit lower on negative affect relative to their own personal average, there was a corresponding improvement in their cognitive function. So this suggests that cognition and negative affect are fluctuating together within individuals across time. So if a participant received a lower score for negative affect, indicating less negative affect or better mood relative to their own personal average, then there was a spike in their MMSE cognitive score at that time. And vice versa, a higher negative affect score indicating worsened mood resulted in a decrease in their cognitive performance. And results also revealed that cognitive performance was coupled with gait velocity under the cognitively loaded dual task condition as well. So on occasions when a given individual performed 1 unit faster on gait velocity, indicating increased central nervous system functioning, there was a corresponding improvement on their cognitive functioning. Now, this is particularly interesting because for individuals with dementia, the mere act of walking can be cognitively demanding. An increase in cognitive load or burden can further impact gait through a phenomenon known as cognitive resource competition, where basically the brain has finite processing resources and can only allocate so many resources to different tasks, especially for individuals with dementia, as these resources are already constrained by the neuropathology and by the associated comorbidities. So I hope everyone's with me still and following along. I know that's a lot to digest, but these results essentially suggest that alleviating adverse symptoms associated with dementia, such as elevated negative affect and its corresponding impact on cognitive resource competition, through participation in a music-based lifestyle intervention, may free up available neural resources, which may result in increases in cognitive function. So in the absence of a cure, psychosocial lifestyle interventions are urgently needed to complement pharmaceutical treatments and support living well with disease. However, because previous studies have predominantly used between person comparisons, there still remains debate regarding the efficacy of these psychosocial interventions and whether select variables truly share an association within persons as opposed to just between persons. So an emphasis on coupled associations provides a better understanding of how two processes are systematically associated and the extent to which they synchronously vary within persons across time. So our current research employing this month-to-month intensive repeated measures design provides a novel and more definitive within-person test of the sizable impact of a music-based intervention and the importance of reducing symptoms associated with dementia. So one of the amazing things about these findings is that we were able to demonstrate how strained cognitive resources and psychosocial well-being can impact cognitive performance despite the progressive and irreparable neuropathological changes associated with dementia. So it's so important then to extend these results to wider populations, for example, those in residential care or in rural settings who may be experiencing social isolation or depressive symptoms. And specifically for high-risk populations, it's crucial to understand and potentially harness the power of music and modifiable risk factors to promote overall brain and cognitive health. So our future research will focus on the continued use of various longitudinal statistical designs to demonstrate the impact of the choir intervention within persons, as well as exploring further mechanisms or moderators to better understand how different health domains interact and influence one another. Specifically, my next steps are to investigate other variables, including changes in social support and depression specifically, to examine their impact on cognitive function and to strengthen our current findings. And we're also working on a few dyadic projects where we're looking at how changes in cognitive, physical, and psychological variables in the individual with dementia can impact their specific care partner's corresponding variables, and vice versa as well. So how a care partner's positive affect can then carry over and impact their care recipient's positive affect. So we're kind of looking at this crossover effect between pairs, or also known as dyads. And we're hoping that an implication for the study will help highlight the need to support care partner well-being and the impact of their distress or social support levels, not only for themselves, but also for their care recipient. So thank you, everyone. And yeah, for anyone looking for more information on the choir proceedings or ongoing research, we encourage you to visit the Voices in Motion website or get in touch. And thank you as well to our amazing Voices in Motion team, Deborah, who's here today, and the participants, as well as our supporting organizations and funders as well.